Well, thanks for joining us, guys. This is a pre-recorded video. We were about to do streaming, but it's like, no, no, no. Let's just do a normal interview and get that going. And there's a time lag difference between us, so I'm in the morning. My gentleman is in the afternoon or the evening. So,
Yeah, it's
hey,
about 10:30 at night here in Japan. So,
and I'm in the Eastern Standard Time. So, yeah, the wonders of technology never cease. So here we go. Welcome everyone to this wonderful interview of Game Dev Corner. I'm bringing it back after all these years because we have some Kickstarter projects as this. We may as well go ahead with it. And whether it's a developer, an artist, a voice person, creative type makes no difference. We're always going to be talking about gaming and the projects they're passionate about. And we've got Subverse, the spiritual successor to everyone's fantasies in the Mass Effect world and brought to light in this wonderful studio that decided to take the plunge and do a game. And I gotta ask, the first question is like, what was the reasoning behind going into this sort of work? Because you guys have been doing this for years and years in a purely pre-rendered video form, high quality audio, high quality video. What was the big mentality of doing that?
gotcha. Yeah, and this is a question a lot of people have been asking ever since the game was announced. I guess the best way I can explain this. Well, first, let me introduce myself.
Oh, I'm
I'm
sorry.
Mr. Kristoff. That's all right. I work at Studio FOW. I've been there almost since the beginning, basically right before BioShock Trinity came out. So the reason why I mention that is I'm very well versed in the Source Filmmaker engine, which is what we use to produce all of that lovely content that you and our fans enjoyed. And while it is indeed capable of producing high quality stuff, it's also not a very good engine overall. It's over 10 years old at this point, I think, and it hasn't had a proper patch or update in years. And working inside that engine is just a nightmare, especially when you want to create the kind of top quality content that we do. And I'm not exaggerating when I say probably like half of our time goes towards just hiding mistakes that happen in the engine. Like you'll try to put a model in a certain position and like the legs will break in half and the head will shoot out the ass and like it's an absolute nightmare. So working in SFM, you waste a lot of time just dealing with the limitations of the software. So we were looking to eventually move into a new engine. And right around the time we were doing that, we met this goal on Patreon that basically said we were going to create a Unity 3D game for the fans. And originally that was intended to just be like a short little project they could play with. Now, the thing is, once we started messing around with Unity, it was good, but it just wasn't exactly what we were looking for. So then we kind of looked at Unreal Engine and thought, okay, is it possible to do what we need to do in here? And we managed to come up with a theoretical pipeline and test it. And then we hired a game dev to kind of help us put everything together in there using the money that we had from the goal on the Patreon. And that test turned out so good that we were just like, man, we could easily turn this into a full video game and it would blow away everything else that's on the market right now in the adult gaming space, as well as anything that's going to come for like years after. So now is the time. We have all the people, we have everything we need to get this going. Why don't we do it? So it was kind of a perfect storm of circumstances. We were going to move into the new engine anyways for the movie production, and we just happened to start doing it with the game production side of things as well.
Wow, that sounds like a great story of just a series of things just happening wonderfully in your favor. Wow.
Yeah, it was quite, I guess, quite efficient how everything worked out for us in the end. And yeah, we're really happy to be where we are right now because all those pieces just came together at just the right time.
Awesome, awesome. Okay, well, let's just go here from gameplay. There's storytelling. You have the erotic content. Is there a certain balance between the three, or do you all want to mesh them all together?
Oh, they're definitely meshed together. If there's one thing I can say I'm very proud about with Subverse, it is very, very cohesive in its experience. There's eroticism in the gameplay, there's gameplay in the storytelling, and, eroticism in everything. I mean, the game just constantly bombards you with filthy content. Like, even when you're doing a shmup or like a tactical grid combat mission, there'll be like, a robot called William Dildo Fingers that has these like dicks on his hands and punches you in the face. And yeah, I mean, it's just everything flows together really well, especially like the storytelling. the plot is relevant to every single thing you do in the game. So it's not like some hentai games where it's basically like, oh, match these 3 tiles and then you unlock a sex scene. It's like everything will function together to give you an experience where you really feel like you're in a real video game, not just something that somebody kind of slapped together and threw hentai art on top of. So.
Now, generally, these adult-themed games are rather silly. They're comedic. They're kind of a farcical tone. Is there some sort of balance between that fun silliness and like drama as we progress throughout the story?
Oh yeah. It's tough to compare this to anything because honestly, I've never seen anything like it before. But if I had to kind of like give a modern comparison, I'd say it's very similar to something like South Park, where it's absurdist comedy. There's some really over the top, ridiculous things that happen, but at the same time, it deals with some really heavy topics. Like the script involves things like xenophobia, genocide, there's religious oppression, the ethics of gene manipulation. Like we discuss some really heavy topics, but we do it from a really like whimsical, crazy tone. Not dissimilar to like Monty Python or something like that. I think people will be really happy with it because when we did some like initial playtesting of the game, the script is something that was very consistently praised as being strong. So people will definitely enjoy the story.
Excellent. That's pretty much all my viewers want to hear for having a gameplay that actually has a story that you can follow and say, ah, there's a beginning, a middle, and end, and there's some characters that change, and you have conflicts along the way. I mean, I'm not expecting some Shakespearean tragedy here, but at least there's something for us to sink our teeth into and say, yes, we like these characters. They're actual, we can relate to them in some way.
Oh yeah, yeah, and that's my number one criticism of a lot of hentai games out there is, especially when it comes to the women or the waifu characters, they're basically just like there for the sex. But when it comes to Subverse, every single character in the game is written to be a real woman with values and objectives and problems in her life, and you need to help her in order to get her to trust you and eventually have sex with you. So, yeah, like you have to really work and put in an effort to make these women kind of join your team. So I
And
think people will really appreciate that.
and all these characters exist in this weird universe where there's some sort of conglomerate of, I don't know what you would call the powers that be that are trying to come after you, and
Oh yeah.
you're all rebelling against them. What is the setting exactly like in this scenario?
I can't reveal too much because we'd get into spoiler territory, but more or less the government of the Prodigium Galaxy is extremely oppressive towards anything sexual, and they do that obviously in order to suppress people, rule over them, and so you're forming a strike team in order to just stage a revolution and overthrow the government. So all of these women that you recruit, you can kind of tell by the wanted posters we have on the Kickstarter. They're all criminals in the eyes of the Imperium, but they will be, heroes in the eyes of your quest. And they all have different reasons for fighting alongside you that relate to their backstories, and those will all be explored during the missions where you recruit them.
Okay, let's switch over to gameplay now because this is where I'm really interested in the actual components. Because there's a lot of beautiful art on the Kickstarter. You can scroll up and down, and all the wanted posters and all the little animations and what have you. But the thing that
Right.
caught my attention was the shmup, because as soon as I saw that, I thought, you know what? That's what Mass Effect needed in the exploration phase, where nothing happens. You need something going on, and then
Oh yeah.
you had turn-based combat, and I was like, wait a second, how detailed is that? What's going on in that scenario? Because there's all these numbers and things flashing. Like, oh my goodness, what's going on there? Because I've interviewed people that have made specifically uh, JRPGs or TRPGs, and they've had so many problems. They were using Unity, and it was just this really complicated process. So how involved is your gameplay, at least for the turn-based application?
I would say when it comes to the turn-based combat, it's very similar to the way we stylize the shmup and actually the overall gameplay experience. It's very fast-paced, especially compared to other tactics games. Since this is a porn game, there's obviously going to be a lot of people playing that don't necessarily play video games, and they're here just for like the erotic content. So we're keeping the difficulty more on the casual side. However, the way that we have the systems kind of built working together, it's a very like addictive arcade pace. And we have systems in place where if you perform very well, you can get higher rewards. So there's something here for like the casual players as well as the hardcore players. As far as constructing it and like getting all the things to kind of work together and be fun, we have some very talented guys on our team that have released successful games on their own. So they've already been through all these challenges. This is not something that we really had to worry about when it came to design because they were there to help us every step of the way. And people are really going to like the shmup. They're really going to like the grid combat. And I think they're going to find it very unique and interesting to play.
Now, I did notice some screenshots. They must have been from some backers from months ago because I couldn't find them anywhere elsewhere. And they had like loadout pictures and equipment and stuff like that. So is there like some diverse system for equipping or getting loot? I know there's a loot system. I just don't know how detailed that is. But is there like a crafting system? Is there like a rock paper scissors idea, or is there some other elements that we're not being shown yet that you want to talk about that we can say, oh, there's actually some complexity and strategy and tactics here?
Oh, definitely, yeah. And there are some things I can talk about. There's some things I can't. But basically, the depth in the grid combat stems from a couple different places when it comes to customization. First off, the waifus, every single one of them has their own unique set of abilities. So they have different, attacks they can use. They have different buffs they can provide to the team, different fighting styles, things like that. So no matter what, when you pick a character, they'll be able to do something unique for you. And on top of that, you have something in the game called manticores, and those are some soldiers that you kind of like create through genetic manipulation, and they fight alongside your waifus. And every single mantic does something different. So you can create like so many different combinations of strategy using just those two sets of characters on your team. And on top of that, all the enemy factions in the game have unique soldiers that have unique attacks. And every faction has a different like style that they'll come at you with. Like some of the factions will try to swarm you. Some of them are more chaotic. They rely on explosives and things like that. Some of them rely on more like team tactics, like shields and healing. So there is quite a bit that comes along with the gameplay, even though it is more fast-paced and arcadey. And you will be able to get loot throughout the game. So visiting planets, getting experience points, unlocking new abilities, all that stuff is going to be featured in the game. So people will be absolutely like thrilled, I think, when they see what we have in place. As far as the screenshots you're talking about, those probably came from our Steam store page. Yeah, that's where we have a couple of those things posted.
Cool. All right. Well, I was talking about gameplay. I realized that there are no stretch goals related to gameplay. I'm assuming that's because everyone's geared towards more content on the erotic side. So does that mean the gameplay is pretty much solid and it's all locked in? You just have to develop it more?
That's interesting to hear because actually, when it comes to the rewards, just having someone like Taryn the Cat Girl or like Squid Girl, when you unlock them, you get access to new missions, new play styles, things like that. So those goals themselves relate to the gameplay. As far as like the other stuff, we also have the loyalty quests in there, which are really like complex narrative quests that take place towards the end of the game. So that's another gameplay feature. And even when it comes to, the animations, those are tied into the gameplay because the animations are going to be unlocked with experience points and kind of like a tech tree system. So everything you see there is a stretch goal. Again, it's cohesive. It flows back to the gameplay in some way.
Interesting. Okay. So about the stretch goals, I was really confused about the 100K launch because you need that in order for Kickstarter to go ahead and accrue the
Mm.
funds and what have you, as well as the milestones were beneath that. So I was kind of curious, what was the mentality behind setting up milestones that were less than launch? Like, what was the point?
Ah, gotcha. Yeah, totally understand. So this is a common business strategy that people use on Kickstarter where they'll have some stretch goals below the actual limit. And the reason why we do that, well, there's two actually. The first one would basically be to give you an idea of like the early progress and also to give you an idea of where the budget is going, like exactly how much we can do with this amount of money and why we need to go to like that minimum amount in order to fund the full game. So that's why we have a couple stretch goals there that can't technically be met if the game isn't fully produced, just to kind of give people an idea of where we're coming from.
That's interesting. So you're actually outlining what this money means at this point, even though nothing's actually been accrued yet. Okay.
That's correct. Yeah, we want to be very transparent with what we're doing with the money, exactly how the budget works, And I think that people will appreciate that.
Well, one of the ones that jumped out at me, aside from the voice acting, that's all. Like, is that a huge component? Because I know you have talented voice actors, and they've been working with you all this time. Do you want to
Mhm.
make the whole game like that, like every single dialogue piece, or is it just specific you want to add to what's already there, that's already voiced, and just have a longer scene?
Mm. Very good question. So here's the thing with the voice acting. If we hit that tier where the voice acting is available for the full game, basically every single major plot sequence in the game, every character will fully voice all of their lines. That includes the waifus, the captain, any of the villains, even like the villains' lackeys. Like they will all actually speak in the game. There will be some sections that are voiceless, but those aren't like the main storyline or something where like you absolutely are going to get really great impact from hearing the character speak the line. So with that, like you said, we have a lot of really talented VAs, not only that have worked with the studio previously, but are up and comers that we're excited to kind of like show in this game. And yeah, if we hit that tier, it's going to be awesome because, as you've heard from probably the voice samples on Kickstarter, the performances are really good and the script really comes to life when you have them reading it out loud. So, yeah, I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping we hit that one.
Well, you've been getting funds the past 2 days, and you've almost hit your goal. I'm actually looking at a real time on the Kickstarter page right now. You're almost at £95,000. And hopefully by the end of this interview, you'll get closer to 100. It's kind of funny just watching it go up and up. And so anyway, the next one I wanted to talk about, this is again caught my eye with the milestones, was the loyalty
Mhm.
quest. In loyalty quest, you're thinking, bam! Immediately my mind goes to Mass Effect. And what was the mentality behind this? Because you're talking about having 10 chapters in the 150 grand uh, milestone. So here we have
Mhm.
loyalty quests on top of the end game, which is part of that. So how does that all gel together? What's the idea there?
Kind of all goes back to that idea I was talking about before with the waifus being real characters. Like, we wanted to give them depth, we wanted to give them real backstories, and we wanted to give something for you to do with your favorite waifus in the game, something that really meant something when you did it. So these end game quests, these loyalty quests, are going to be very heavily scripted. There's going to be a lot of plot involved with them, and it's going to be like some of the more deep writing in the game, if I can say so. Like, you'll go across the galaxy with them, solve this really critical problem in their life, and of course it'll be funny, but I mean, it's also one of the more romantic features in the game. So a complaint a lot of people have about hentai games is sometimes they get a little too silly, and these endgame quests will give us a nice balance between the humor and really getting to know these women as characters and kind of like pulling through for them. So we really, really think that the loyalty quest is an important tier, and yeah, producing that amount of endgame content will add a significant amount of playability to the game. So yeah, we're hoping to hit that one too.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm hoping for that one as well. I noticed that the release dates based on the tier that you select are different, and the latest one being, I believe, January 2020 for
Hmm.
the Space Whale tier, which is all gone, by the way. And the
Yeah.
earliest is June. No, no, sorry. Yeah, June or July of this year. So is that like the beta's coming out at that point, and then everything else is coming
I
out?
Yeah, I can't confirm any release dates at this point, but I will say that what our plan is right now is to release the game as early access on Steam, and then we're going to release it in chapters. So basically, we'll have the base game come out. The first chapter will obviously be attached to that. And then once the second chapter is done, we'll push that as an update, and it will contain the new gameplay as well as polish for the overall experience in the first chapter. So that's how we're going to kind of pipeline this thing out. And as far as those rewards go, as we're developing, we will be getting those done. And we'll be having those as like side assignments for the guys. Like when they finish up their tasks on the game, go ahead and do this before we start working on the next chapter. So those are the estimates we have in place for kind of like when we expect all of those rewards to be done. Because some of them, obviously, like the Space Whale tier, are going to take a lot longer than, just getting someone's name in the credits. So that's why we have those dates there.
Okay, so how big is the game ideally? If we get to the January 2020 date, how long would the
Hmm.
experience be as opposed to just the minimal 100K?
So if we get the full game with the 10 chapters, we're looking to turn it into an experience where most people will get about 30 plus hours out of the game. And that's with the main quest, the side quests, loyalty stuff, like everything like that all together. You're basically looking at about 30 plus hours. So this is going to be a real video game experience. It's not like one of those games that you kind of blow through in a weekend and you're like, yeah, yeah, I'm good. This is a big one. So yeah, I think a lot of people are kind of picking up on that, and they're all really excited to kind of play a real hentai experience because this has never really been done before.
Can you customize the protagonist in any way?
Okay, so with the customizable protagonist, the thing is that character, his name is the Captain, and you can hear some of his voice reels on the Kickstarter. If you've seen from the trailer, he's actually wearing a mask, and he will be masked throughout the game. And there will be some customizations for that mask in particular, but as far as like a Bethesda level kind of like eyes and hair and all that other kind of stuff being changed around, that's not going to be included. And the main reasoning for that is it allows us to put a lot more effort into making the female characters look impressive and work on the gameplay and all that other stuff. So yeah, once you add like even just like hair and eyes to a character, when it comes to the animation, you're talking about like tripling the workload. So we just decided to kind of go that route with him.
Interesting.
But regardless, he's a really, really great character, and I think people are gonna really like him.
Okay. So, what outside of the erotic aspects? I know we talked about this a bit in the game. Should we look forward to outside of all the because you got lots of content. You know your demographic. You know who you're gearing this towards. But what outside of that? What would the average gamer who's like, hey, you know what? I'm not against adult themed content, but what's really there aside from that?
Sure. If you're not really here for the adult content, I think number one, you're going to love the story of this game. When we did testing, again, the script is what came back as like the number one thing people enjoyed. And then on top of that, the gameplay is just like, it's just fun. You know, it's really cool to fly around in the Phoenix ship and take part in the shmup missions rather. And then the grid combat is just it's fast, it's frantic, and there's a lot of cool little strategic decisions you can make. And there's a couple surprises in terms of what the characters can do that I can't quite talk about right now. So I'm sorry about that. But yeah, once we reveal stuff, we're gonna have some gameplay trailers available, and it's gonna be very impressive. Everybody's gonna get excited.
One more technical question was about the post-release of the game, whether that's during the betas or even at the full. Is there going to be updates? Are there going to be DLC you can get? Is there any sort of back and
Mhm.
forth between the customer and you?
Concerning the back and forth, we do have a tier available on the Kickstarter where you can basically join the beta testing Discord server room. And if you're in there, you're going to be playing content before anyone else gets it. You're going to be able to give us your opinion on that content, and you are going to heavily shape how this game turns out in the long run. So definitely, if people are considering pledging, they want to be part of that experience, that's what you're going to want to go for. As far as like long-term support goes for the game, DLC, we are absolutely going to have customizable outfits for the characters. You'll be able to change around like hair colors, accessories, things like that. So a lot of customization can be done with the waifus. And then, of course, we're discussing the possibility of releasing expansion packs, extra missions, things like that. So, yeah, absolutely, there will be post-release support for this game, and we'll work on the DLC as we're developing it. But honestly, that's not a priority for us. We want to basically just make the best possible game we can, and then we'll kind of get the costumes and all that stuff out of the way after that.
Okay, cool. Now I noticed that this is more of a harem style game, but other people are like, well, what if you just want to romance one person, or is there consequences for romancing everyone? Like, what's the idea there?
Again, I can't quite get into details about that because it's something that we're not quite ready to reveal yet. But if you have like a favorite waifu that you want to spend most of the game with, I can say comfortably that you'll be able to do that. Because of the way the grid combat and everything is designed, you can level just like one waifu and get through all the situations with them. But because of their unique move sets, obviously one will offer like more tactical advantages over the other. And as far as the plot goes, yeah, sorry, I can't I can't reveal that stuff right now.
Okay, cool. One question came up because people are in different regions and they can't have access to Steam. I know you guys love Steam, but someone were
Mhm.
asking, is there like a GOG release plan? And if so, is there any way to support that going forward because of using Steam as updating?
Gotcha. So as far as a GOG release is concerned, it's something we've discussed, but the short answer for now is no. We're not going to be releasing on GOG. We're going to be on Steam primarily because of their early access program and how that will allow us to function. And we'll hope to get the game into all regions that are affected by, like, the Steam store censorship and stuff like that. We are working diligently on a plan for that, especially for regions like China, because we have a lot of fans there and we really, really appreciate them. So rest assured that is something that we'll look to tackle in the future. But right now, we're just concerned with getting the game out the door and in a very high quality state.
A commenter asks about the inspiration, and the obvious connection is the Mass Effect or the character Edie
Hmm.
for Demi. What other fictional characters did you guys draw inspiration from? And someone's asking, like, why does that red pirate girl look so familiar? Like, what's going on?
That's cool to hear. Okay, unfortunately, this is another area where also can't talk too much about it because we parody a lot of stuff in this game, especially when it comes to like the sci-fi classics. And if I kind of like give away what our influences are, it's gonna spoil some really good stuff in the game. So I'm gonna have to pass on answering this one in any detail, unfortunately. But rest assured, the archetypes are all taken from stuff that people in the studio were fans of and we kind of wanted to play with in a certain way. So you'll have some familiarity in the game, but these are all original characters with original backstories, so there'll be a lot of surprises too.
Awesome. Okay, good to hear. So this is the last question, so we're not dragging you out through the mud. Um,
Hmm.
what is the reasoning behind the consumer response, or what is the expectation? Like, do you want to do another game? Do you want to do a sequel? Is this like something for the hell of it? Like, what's the end goal for you guys as a team, as a game company, to go forward?
Gotcha. Well, as far as this game is concerned, obviously it has already exceeded any expectation we had as far as the response goes. Um, we still want to make movies and we want to make games alongside those. So basically, we want both of the divisions of the company to be as successful as possible. And if this game takes off and sells millions of copies and becomes a huge hit, obviously we'll be able to pour a lot more funds into the movie production side of things. And not just that, making this game is going to give our animators a lot of practice. It's going to give us a lot of answers for the technical problems that come up when we're producing our movies. So this is like a win-win situation for everyone. I know some people might be a little like turned off at the fact that we're kind of going for gaming this year as opposed to movies, but rest assured, if we stuck with SFM, like having to deal with half of your workload just fixing errors and things like that, it just we wouldn't have been able to produce the kind of or the kind of quality content we want to in the future going forward, and we would have wasted a lot of time too. So doing this is kind of like the best of both worlds. We're going to create an amazing product, get it out on the marketplace, and all the experience we gain making this game is going to allow us to make better movies in the future.
Sounds excellent. Okay, well, thank you so
Mhm.
much for your time, Mr. Kristoff. I'll be watching this whole Kickstarter process online on Twitter, on Facebook. You have the Discord channel as well for all sorts of questions that people have. And you're about, I don't know, 5% less. You're almost there to your goals. So,
Mhm.
and it's been the second day. So everything seems to be doing fantastically for you guys. I wish you well. And the content looks great. And hopefully we can see some even more. I don't know if you're going to blow past your stretch goals, but at the rate you're going, another month, who knows? You guys might be have a lot on your plate.
Oh yeah, we're getting there. So I'm 100% sure the game's going to be fully funded. As far as the stretch goals go, who knows where it's going to end up? Our projections are quite high at this point, so yeah, stay tuned. And everybody who's donated to the game to support it so far, thank you very much. It's just without the support of our fans, we never would have existed in the first place. And to see everybody rallying together behind this thing, I'm blown away, and I'm so appreciative of everyone. So thank you so much for helping us make this thing happen.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in, and we'll talk to you later.